Is it possible ever to be free of self-centered activity? Is there a real self apart from the self-image? Is it possible ever to be free from self-centered activity? Is there a real self apart from self-created image? All right. I wonder what we mean by the self. If each one of us asked to describe in words what the self, the ego, the personality, the center, the basis from which we act, from which we think, from which we feel, when each one of us could be clear, not only verbally as an idea, but actually, what is the self? If you ask somebody what is the self, he said they would say it's all my senses, my feelings, my imagination, my romantic demands, my sense of having a house, a possession, a husband, a wife, my qualities, my struggles, my achievements, my ambitions, and so on, so on. Also my aspirations, my unhappiness, my joys, and so on. All that would be the self. Would we agree to that? You can add more words to it, but the essence of it is this center, the me, my house, my family, my wife, my children, my bank account, what my impulse is. I want to do this. I am impelled to go to India to find truth, and so on, so on, so on. Would we agree to that? Verbal description of what we call the self. Not only the verbal description, but the feeling, the me and the you. Right? We and they, in which all is included nationalities, the family tradition, the name, the form, psychosomatic approach, and the intellectual capacity, the desire to have more clarity, and so on. The me and the you, we and they, right? And from this center, all action takes place. Right? All our aspirations, all our ambitions, our quarrels, our disagreements, our opinions, judgments, experience is centered in this. Right? Could we go on? Shall I go on? We are together here so far, aren't we? Not only the conscious self acting, outwardly, but also the deep inner consciousness which is not open, obvious. Right? So all this is the me, the I, the ego, the person, the different levels of consciousness. All that is me. Right? Now the questioner asks, is it possible to be free of this center? Right? Why does one want to be free from this center? Is it because this center is the cause of division, me and you, my country and your country, my belief and your belief, my God and your, and so on, so on. And where there is division, there must be conflict. Right? Is this, can we go on? That is, when the me is the active element that is operating all the time, and in you the same me, with a different name, with a different color, different job, with different position, with hierarchical social structure, you are Lord so-and-so, somebody else is a servant, and so on. It is the same me dividing itself into different categories, right? Socially, economically, religiously. I think that's very clear. And one realizes where there is division, there must be conflict. The Hindu and the Muslim, the Jew and the Arab, the American and the English and the French and the German, so on, so on, so on, so on. That is physically obvious. And that has brought about in the world tremendous wars, great agony of people, brutality, violence, right? The self identifying itself with an ideal, noble, ignoble ideals, and fighting for that ideal. But it is still the ego trip. Right? It's like those people who go to India, I don't know why, but they do, trying to find spirituality and putting on a different fancy dress and saying, I'm going to find spiritual things there. They've only changed the garb, the clothes, but they are essentially the me, which is operating all the time, struggling, endeavoring, grasping, denying, deeply attached. Deeply attached to one's experience, to one's ideas, to one's opinions, to one's longings. Right? And as one lives, as one observes, this center, this me, is the essence of all trouble. And also all pleasure, all fear, all sorrow. So it says, how am I to get rid of this center? I hope it is clear. We can expand it more, but that is the essence of it. There are too many questions. So, is it possible, the questioner asks, to be really free? Absolutely, not relatively. which is fairly simple. One can be little unselfish. One can be concerned with social welfare, with others and so on. But the center is always there, biting, hard, brutal. We all know this. So is it possible to be free of that center? First of all, the more effort is made to be free of the center, the more, please listen to this, the more one makes an effort to be free of the center, that very effort strengthens the self. Right? Like those people who go off into meditation of various kinds, trying to impose something upon it, and that me then captures that, identifies with that, and it says, I've achieved. But it's still the center. Right? So, please, to be first, to understand whether it's possible to be free, there must be no effort. Right? Which doesn't mean doing what one likes. That's clear. No? No? If one doesn't make an effort, then let's do what we like, which is still the movement of the self. Whether you put on a yellow robe or purple robe or join a monastery, it is the self still, identified with an ideal and pursuing that ideal through great effort. But the movement is from the center. I wonder if that's clear, isn't it? So what is one to do? If you are not to make an effort, because you see the truth of it, that the more you make an effort, the greater the travail of the self. It is the self that's making an effort to be free of itself. And therefore it's still involved in it. Imagining that it will be free, it will be imagining that it will be, etc., etc. But it is still the activity of the center, me. Then what is one to do? Before we go into that, is there a real self apart from the self created by thought with its images? The question says, is there a real self? Many people feel that. The Hindus have said there is the highest principle, which is the self. And we have imagined also that there is a real self apart from the me. You all, I'm sure, feel that there's something else beyond this me, which is called the higher self or the sublime self or the supreme self. The moment we use the word self or use any word to describe that which is beyond the self, the me, is still the self. The first thing to realize is it possible to be free of the self without becoming a vegetable, without becoming absent-minded, somewhat lunatic, and so on, so on, so on. Is it possible? Which means what? Is it possible to be totally free from attachment? That's one of the attributes, one of the qualities of the self, right? Right, sirs? I am attached to my reputation. I am attached to my name. I am attached to my experience. I am attached to what I have said. And so on. So, is it possible to be free from all attachments? Work it out, sirs. If you really want to be free of the self, no attachment. Which doesn't mean you become detached, indifferent, callous, shut yourself away, which is another form of the self. You understand? Before it was attached, now it says I won't be attached. It is still the movement of the self. So, if a person, serious, really concerned, because the world is divided, is this, the me and the you, we and they, we British and they French, rather the Irish. The black and the white and the brown. So is it possible, without effort, to be free of attachment to your wife, to your children, to your name? You can't very well be detached from your bank account if you have one. Then the bank profits from it. But to be detached, know what it means? Not to be identified with anything. With your country, with your God, with your nothing. Therefore, when you are really deeply, basically not attached, then from that deep sense of no attachment comes responsibility. Not responsibility to my wife, to my children, to my nephew, niece. This sense of responsibility. Right? Will you do it? That is the question. We can talk everlastingly, put it into different words, but when it comes to testing it, active, we don't seem to want to do it. And so we prefer to go on as we are, status quo, slightly modified, but carry on with our quarrels, with our, all the things that are happening in the world. And to be free from your own experience, from your own knowledge, from your own accumulated perception. You understand all this? So it is possible if you go at it. And it doesn't take time. That's one of our excuses, that we must have time to be free. When you see one of the major factors of the self is attachment, and you see what it does in the world, and what it does in your relationship with another, separation, all the rest, ultimately quarrels, divorce, all the ugliness of relationship. If you see the truth of attachment, then that very truth is so. It is actual. Then you are free from it. Your own perception sets you free. Right? Will you do it?